Hello folks and welcome to the OceanState Cuisine. I know it's been a while since I released a video, but I decided on releasing one today. This is going to be a good, wholesome, hearty meal. Something that sticks to your ribs and leaves you satisfying. This is a meat, potato, and cheddar cheese casserole. This is actually the first time I ever made this and it came out delicious. So now first things first is we're going to look at some of the main ingredients used in today's dish. However, I did decide on improvising and adding more spices and seasonings to this dish as we go on. And that being chili powder and cumin powder, equal amounts. So looking at this image right here, we see to the right, I got some chopped up onion. Now, I'm not making a big amount of this or a large amount of this, so I used maybe like a large onion and I diced it up. And then next to that, we got 2 russet potatoes. And then in the food storage bag to the bottom left is some hamburger patties that I'm actually just going to break up and saute. Then of course some salt and some pepper. And I got a jar of brown gravy. This is about half full. Then next to that, we got some Parmesan cheese, some minced garlic, and some light soy sauce. And again, a few other things that I'll be adding as we go along with today's video. And of course, we can't forget the cheddar cheese. I know this image is quite blurry, but this is a Mexican style for cheese that I'm using. Okay, so the first things first is that I have to slice up the potatoes. So after I wash them, we're going to slice these up, and we're going to slice them pretty thin. But I'm not going to make them paper thin because you want something to bite into. But you want to keep them pretty close to the same size so that they cook evenly. And yes, I leave the skin on my potatoes. That's where most of the nutrients are and flavors. So again, I'm just going to slice up both potatoes, set it aside, and we're going to start now cooking down the ground beef. Alright, so next I'm going to warm up a large skillet on about medium to medium high heat. And I really got to buy some new pans soon. Now in goes some butter, and then I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to the butter. Again, I know if you watch my other videos, this is what Julia Child used to do, and a lot of chefs do this now. It keeps the butter from burning, and the two together just adds a great flavor. And again, you don't have to add a lot here because the ground beef also has fats in it. You may want to use a very lean ground beef here because a lot of oils did end up coming out of it. And then first I add the chopped up onions to this. And I just want to saute them a bit. Add some salt and some pepper. And then eventually I'm going to start adding, in my case, the hamburger patties or your ground beef. I'm probably using about a ½ pound total. And then whatever you have, a potato masher, whatever, you're going to start breaking this up. But the hamburger breaks up a lot easier once it starts to cook more. So again, I'm just breaking it up this way it browns more evenly. We're just going to let it cook until it's pretty much cooked all the way, but it doesn't have to be because it's going to be put in the oven for quite a while. But it's not a good idea to use raw meat in a casserole because you never know what could happen. Once it's browned off more, then we're just going to mix it now with the onion. And then eventually I'm going to add some minced garlic to this. And I'm probably using about 2 flat teaspoons worth. And again, this is about a ½ pound of meat because each patty is a ¼ pound. Alright, now I'm going to start blending everything. We're going to mix in the garlic really good. And we're going to add the onion to it. Give everything a good stir. And we're good to go. If you notice, I usually do cook the onions separately first. It just sautés them better that way because they're getting more of a contact to the actual pan. And the same with the meat. Then when it's cooked about halfway, then I end up blending everything. And then next, I'm going to add some salt and pepper to this, to the hamburger. But I'm not going to add tons of salt because we're going to be using some soy sauce, even though I am using a light sodium soy sauce. And plus I added salt already to the onion. But Black pepper, we love tons of. So again, in goes some black pepper. Just gonna give this a nice stir, give it a shake, and we're gonna get ready to season this even more. Right now the house is already smelling amazing. Now in goes a couple of splashes of soy sauce. This adds a nice flavor to this. And this is a lower sodium soy sauce that I'm using. Now we want to blend this well. And then next I'm going to add some chili powder. Now I know you really can't see how much I'm adding to this, but I would say that it's safe to say that I added about 2 teaspoons. That's level. And then soon we're going to be adding some cumin to this, and about the same amount. This is actually making like a taco seasoning. And then I'm going to stir this well. And now I'm going to give it a taste test. See if it needs anything. Okay, now next we got our jar of gravy. Now there's a few reasons why I'm using gravy, because I didn't have a can of cream of mushroom. I would have probably used that. But what's nice about the gravy too is that it's going to add some moisture to the casserole. That's going to help with the potatoes and the cheese to melt. And the potatoes to soften. Plus it's going to add a flavor. But I did water this down like I showed you guys earlier. About 40% of water, because this jar was only half full. Because this is going to continue to thicken up while it's baking in the oven. I just wanted to add some moisture to this because I don't like just using plain water. But I'm sure if that's all you have, it would work just perfectly fine. Or even a little bit of red wine would really make this taste good. Say that this hamburger is now done cooking. Now comes the fun part. Let's make a casserole out of all this. In the meantime, you could stop preheating your oven. I cooked mine on 365 Fahrenheit. I should have pushed the casserole dish a little more further into the camera, but we should be able to see what I'm doing. So the first thing is that I'm adding a little bit of butter to the pan. Or I should say the dish. And with a piece of paper towel, I'm just going to brush this all over the inside of the casserole dish. Again, you want to use softened butter for this. And then just to play it extra safe, I even sprayed it a little bit with some cooking spray. Less cleanup at the end is always a good deal for me. Or I should say scrubbing. Okay, now the first thing that we're going to put in is some sliced potatoes along the whole bottom of the casserole dish. I will fast forward some of these sections. It's kind of like layering a lasagna. And then we know that potatoes love salt, so I'm going to lightly salt these and then also use some ground black pepper. And then I'm actually going to sprinkle a little bit of onion powder on this layer of potatoes. And I'm also going to hit it with some paprika. And then in goes a layer of our shredded cheddar cheese. You could also use other cheeses here too if you want to use sliced American, provolone. The list goes on and on. But I really like cheddar cheese when it comes to dishes like this. And now I'm even going to sprinkle it with some Parmesan cheese. Okay, now in goes our ground beef mixture. I did drain some of the excess oil off of it a little bit earlier, but later on as it bakes in the oven, it's even going to get more oily. And I'm adding all my ground beef to this one layer. I am now going to spread this out nice and evenly, and this is the perfect amount of meat. Okay, I do want to make a correction from earlier. I guess I'm adding water to the leftover gravy now because I didn't use all the gravy. I just used a little bit of it in the hamburger mixture. So again, I probably filled this up about halfway to maybe a quarter of a way with water. And then I'm going to put the cap on the jar and we're going to give it a good shake. And now I'm going to take the rest of this gravy that's mixed down with some water and we're going to pour it right on top of the hamburger or the ground beef mixture. And then we're going to add another layer of cheddar cheese. And then we're going to top it off with another layer of the potatoes. And then we're going to hit these potatoes also with the onion powder, some salt, and some pepper. And a little more of grated cheese. And I still had a little bit of the brown gravy mixture left, so I'm going to put a little bit of this on the top layer. Again, the main reason for this is it's going to add some moisture and help the potatoes to get tender. If you didn't reserve any gravy for this last step, it's not a big deal. And then again, another layer of the cheddar cheese. Then I'm hitting the very top with a little bit of paprika and some dry parsley flakes. It's looking pretty good, isn't it? Now, because I ran out of foil and I can't find the lid that goes to this casserole dish, I'm just using a baking pan here, and I'm using this as a lid. This thing's about 70 years old. So now in the oven it goes. So again, the oven was preheated to 365 Fahrenheit, and I cooked it for about 40 minutes covered. And then I uncovered it, and I cooked it for almost another hour. Actually, I wish that I cooked it for a solid hour. The potatoes were good, but they could have cooked a little bit longer, I would say by 5 or 10 minutes. So total cooking time would be about an hour. And then also I want to mention that because the meat continues to cook, and then cheese also has oils in it when it starts to melt and all that, it did have a fairly amount of oil on the top. So what I did to combat that was that I just poured off the excess grease into my garbage. If you don't feel good about doing it that way, you could also blot the top with some paper towels. So now let's take this out of the oven, let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes to cool down and set up, and then let's cut a piece and see what it looks like. Now I know that this image didn't really come out the clearest, but we could see that, man, this thing came out delicious. This is definitely something I'm going to be making again. But the next time, I'm going to make sure that I have more ingredients on hand. I'd like to add some wine to this and maybe use cream of mushroom or cream of celery. And there we have it, folks. I know it was a rather long video, but you really have to try this. Thanks again for watching the OceanState Cuisine. Feel free to sub up, ring that bell notification down below, and also leave a comment. After all this is free and it helps in supporting the channel. So until the next time, you folks have yourself a great day.